Okay. Apparently we're live streaming. Hello, anyone out there in the world. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Or maybe 1 minute or less.
Should I get started?
Yeah? Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Welcome, everybody!
Welcome.
Come one, come all. All right. Well, first of all, thank you for all for joining. This was the location for the last meetup, but we had a hiccup. But we're back here, like it was meant to be. Really excited to be here. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Harris Schneiderman, and I'm with Chris Land. We're the co-organizers, the founders of a11ySD, the Accessibility and Inclusive Design Meetup here in San Diego. And tonight we have some awesome talks in lineup. We have a talk about UX writing, gender inclusion, and teaching people how to use assistive technology. It'll be pretty awesome. I've had a chance to look at some of the slides, so I'm excited. And we're always looking for speakers at upcoming events. So if you have anything in mind that you wanted to run through for like 10 or 15 minutes, it's a quick, very chill lightning talk. Anything about accessibility at all, we are welcome. And we always are looking for speakers, because when we don't get enough speakers, Chris and I have to talk, and you don't want to see what happens when we have to talk. So yeah.
Right. And sorry, I hate breaking up like all the networking conversations. We're going to do our 3 talks. But then stick around. We've got food, we've got drinks. The whole point is networking and being social and learning from each other. So, yeah, please hang out. Shout out to sponsors, DQ. They provide accessibility consulting services and software, including Axe Dev Tools, of which Harris here is you're the product manager, yeah, and I've worked on that for like your whole life.
My whole life.
And they've got some job openings at the moment, so check out their website. We'd also like to thank a11ySD. They also provide software tools supporting accessibility and in the development process through coding and testing, all the points in the pipeline. Learn more about them at a11ySD.com. I want to thank The Rose and Secret Sister for hosting us. Thank you. Hang out, drink a lot, eat a lot, tip generously, so we'll be welcome in the future. We'd love that. And want to share, if you didn't see, we emailed it out through the meetup, but we've partnered with Blink UX, the UX firm downtown, for past events and years. They reached out to us. They're having an online conference called Convoy UX, and that's May 2nd through 4th. And they emailed and gave us a free registration code for anyone in our group. So check it out. There's accessibility stuff, UX stuff, research stuff. The code to use, it's Convey. Sorry, I always get that wrong.
Convoy,
Convey UX, a11y 2023. You can hit either one of us up if you forget it, but their website is conveyux.com. But check that out. So
head up to Convoy Street for some.
I registered it. The A was capitalized. I don't know if it's case sensitive. It's a11y 2023.
Feel free to reach out if you forget when you get home. We'll send it back out to you guys. So yeah, now's the time where if anybody works for a company who is hiring or is looking for a job, so if you're a job seeker, raise your hand. You can talk about your skill set if you're looking for a job or what the opening at your company entails. Any volunteers?
Sorry, I'm still doing. My name is Andrew. I'm a UX designer for Coforma. Coforma is a digital services agency that supports government contracts. I know this summer we're looking for interns, and while y'all might be further along in your careers, it's a good opportunity for anybody to know or yourself if career transitioning or switching things. Please come up and talk to me and give you details on that.
Yeah. Talk to him if you're interested. Anybody else looking or offering?
I'm
I'm Mike Loco, Accessibility Product Manager with ServiceNow. We are looking for a staff accessibility engineer to join our team. So if you're passionate about accessibility, which a lot of us are in this room, please take a look at the link on, I'm trying to find it, I believe it's on Smart Recruiter. So we have a position open in there, and it has all the application link and all the asks for that position. So if you're interested, go to Smart Recruiter and take a look at ServiceNow.
Awesome.
And these are perfectly valid, awesome things to put up on the meetup page. There's like a discussion board, and if you're looking for accessibility people in San Diego, I think it's probably a good spot. Yeah, Devin?
I work at a company called Data. Currently I'm a training lead, but we're hiring a senior front-end developer, and our focus is in the site accessible. So you would have your hands in helping make the site accessible and automating.
Sweet.
Help it out to
Yeah.
So I am actually also looking for a job later, but I'm from San Diego State, and I am a student hospital student internship opening up next fall. My current student has graduated, so he's leaving, but the internship would start in the fall. The only caveat is that you have to be a San Diego State student, but you don't have to have accessibility. I'll teach you that if I'm still there. If not, if I have something else that will diverge on as well, it's great what students do. So yeah, if anybody has any student friends or you are a student, come take me after.
Awesome. Anybody else? Great participation. Love it. I forgot to announce one thing. I personally will be doing a free webinar 2 days before Global Accessibility Awareness Day on, I think, May 16th. Very entry level on how to, and it's not very salesy, which often I'm forced to do. No, I'm on live streaming. No, it's going to be it's going to be covering open source accessibility testing tools, very entry level if you're new to the game. So feel free to attend. We haven't actually made any like marketing announcements, but I'll post it on our meetup. So forgot to announce that. So without further ado, let's get into our lightning talks. First up, that was a lightning bolt striking. First up, we have
After I set him up.
Okay. And that's just right, left.
Yep.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm Nathan. Pronounce he, him. I am trans. I'm pretty open about that because I am passionate about relating it to the work that I do and in web development, web design. So tonight, very excited to be speaking to you on creating gender-inclusive forms. So tonight, our objectives. I'll give a little bit of an intro on gender diversity. We'll look at some statistics. First main point, should you ask for gender? We'll look at what that means with meaningful data and the risks associated with asking. Second main point, sex versus gender. We'll define the differences and look at some obstacles and impact that users end up facing. Third point is going to be, what do you ask for gender? We'll look at some do's and don'ts on your forms, and then how to ask for pronouns and prefixes, and then some time for questions at the end. So, gender diversity. A little bit of terminology. What is cisgender or cis, right? So that's somebody whose gender identity corresponds with the sex that they were registered with at birth, right? Most people are cisgender. The opposite of that would be somebody who is transgender, right? So somebody who was maybe assigned male at birth, but now identifies with gender as a woman. So gender diverse cultures have been historically documented since as early as 5000 BC. A lot of indigenous cultures, it's been a huge part of since that time. So some statistics that are important. 1.6 million people ages 13 and up in the US identify as being trans. 18% of those are ages 13 to 17. We know that trans youth has doubled in the last 5 years. And what this shows is that gender diversity is becoming something that is being more embraced by the younger generations, right? It's something that's growing. So it's something to consider when we're designing for inclusivity, right? Either kind of jump on the train or you're going to get left behind type of thing. So the first thing you should do before deciding to throw that on your forms is, should you really ask for this, right? So you should ask them before you ask yourself. Before asking them, ask yourself. First question, is the user's behavior different depending on their gender, right? A good example of this would be the Bumble dating app, if you've heard of it, right? Only women are allowed to message first to their matches. So yeah, in that case, gender is definitely something necessary to know. Second question, will users' gender affect experience with the product? So a good example of this is non-cis women who do use menstrual products, right? Most marketing campaigns are directed towards women and give lots of empowering messages for women, right? So maybe it is important for somebody to want to really understand their whole product audience, right? Not just a portion of it, not just the majority. Third question, is this data meaningful, right? Is asking for gender really necessary to understand your product audience or to know your users? Is it relevant? What are you going to use this data for? So there are risks associated with asking for gender, right? A 2021 Cypher UK study found that gender is the second most common reason for discrimination. 4.7 people have responded that they've been refused a job just because of that. So really, when you think about it, when you're asking for gender, who's going to get their hands on that data, right? What if there are recruiters who are hiring and they're either actively discriminating or doing so based on a bias, unconscious bias, right? So it's definitely something to consider, and you need to weigh your pros and cons because of that. So ask, will this data result in identifying the needs of all of your users, not just a majority? Is it going to help or hurt your users? Can this data actually end up leading to more inequality, right? The whole purpose, the whole point is to be more inclusive, right? But we have to kind of recognize when that might backfire. So, should you ask for gender? The answer is to just use your best judgment, right? It's something that should be decided on a case-by-case basis. You should consider your experience, user experience for all of your users, not just for a majority of them, yeah. And then when you do so, just make sure you're being intentional. So sex versus gender is our second main point. First, I would say that sex and gender are not the same thing. A lot of times we do see on forms that are trying to ask for gender, they ask for either male or female. This is the biggest no-no you can possibly do, right? So the World Health Organization states that sex is different biological and physiological characteristics of males and females. Gender is the socially constructed characteristics of women and men, right? So sex, you can kind of think of that in a more clinical sense if that's easier for you. It's something that you're registered with at birth that doesn't necessarily align with your gender, right? So again, an example would be somebody who is registered male at birth now identifies with gender as a woman. So some obstacles that users face when they're asked for sex on forums. Immediately it creates confusion. What are you asking exactly? Are you wanting to know my gender or my sex? Why do you want to know this, right? Huge main point, legal documents still use sex. Driver's licenses, birth certificates, right? And lots of trans individuals, they end up getting those records amended. So what does that mean? It ends up turning an experience into a really murky type of thing. And I'll give you an example, and I'll use myself for that. So let's say my driver's license used to be my gender marker is female, right? Now it's male. I join a health app and I try to access a medical service, right? So I enter in the forms and it asks me male, female for sex. At this point, I'm kind of stuck, right? It's like I don't know what to do, but really I don't have much of an option. I have to enter in my legal sex, otherwise that can, default on the identity verification process. So I go ahead and enter in male legal sex and I continue on. So now I get to the point, right, where I'm going to need to access this medical service. So I go to do so. Immediately I get a warning and it tells me, this service is not available for your gender. So what do I do at that point? I really can't do anything. I'm immediately blocked from using that service. I would either have to try to re-register, try to use a different sex, or reach out to customer service, which is probably a ridiculous process if you've ever had to do anything with that on random apps. So yeah, huge thing to consider. So the impacts for users when you do ask for sex. Lots of people cannot access that service or product, right? Discrimination can occur in identity verification. You know, lots of people on the other line might say, you don't sound like a woman, or you don't sound like a man. People can endure consistent misgendering, which is being referred to as the incorrect gender. And this can really take the form of like spam newsletters, just account profile information, as well as targeted advertising that's geared towards the incorrect gender, right? So it's not even relevant to them. So over time, this can really affect mental, physical well-being of your users. And really, it's just a poor user experience for an entire community. So if asking sex is absolutely necessary, the best thing you can do, add a disclosure for transparency. A great example here, from this form, it states, your gender identity isn't shown in your application. This data will be shared with the companies anonymously as part of demographic studies, right? So what they're doing is they're explaining why they're asking and what they're asking for. This is super important. Another point, do not use this data for other fields, right? So if you need to ask for male, female, sex, don't decide to use that data to render like a female avatar or a profile account that's female oriented, right? Because again, that's not relevant to a lot of people and it's actually very discomforting, right? So if you want to do something like that, include a gender field. You can always do that. And then being empathetic, right? Using sensitive language goes a really long way with your users. So there's other terms that you can use, like assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth. Being gender affirming. I used an app once where it was actually a really great experience for me because it said, it asked for sex because it was necessary, right? It was a medical thing. And then right after it said, we understand that this may not align with your gender identity. So something as simple like that really goes a long way. So, on to what to ask for gender don'ts. On the left side, we have a form asking for I am female, male, transgender male. So automatically we know that this is asking for sex data, right? It's not relevant for gender at all. There's no explanation, no context, it's just overall a very confusing option. On the right-hand side, we have a form asking for woman or man. This is just the binary option, it's just exclusive in nature, right? There's lots of options missing. So with the don'ts continued, on the left-hand side, we have asking for woman, man, non-binary. While this may seem like a step in the right direction, there's also missing options, right? So it can suggest to your users that there are less important genders. And it's not possible to include all identities, right? That would be kind of ridiculous. It's a very long list, and I've kind of seen it on some places. So on the right-hand side, we have asking for I am woman, man, other, and rather not say. So it's basically the same thing. The biggest intro to this is the other field. I've seen it recommended to use this, and I would highly recommend not to, because othering is basically treating or viewing people intrinsically different, as intrinsically different to yourself or alien, right? And so this happens a lot to marginalized communities, and being on the other end of that other just doesn't feel good, right? So I would highly recommend avoiding that term. So what to ask for gender dues? On the left side, we have a form, radio buttons asking woman, man, non-binary, rather not say, and then we have a type in option, all right? So this is super great. It allows for genders that are not listed. On the right-hand side, basically the same thing, except those radio buttons are now checkboxes. And what this does, it allows for multiple selections, right? Lots of people don't always align with just one gender. So it's super great being flexible for your users. One thing to note is that you do need to consider the way your data is collected before you decide to use this type of option, right? This method can definitely make it more of a challenge to organize and analyze your data later on. So on to prefixes. This image on the left side is a form that was taken from a hotel booking site. And it's asking for prefixes with a drop-down list of selections for Dr., Miss, Mr., Mrs., Miss, so forth, right? Immediately not a great thing because it's a required field. And what this does is, since there's missing options, it forces your user into having an unwanted prefix. It's something that creates discomfort, frustration, it's not very inclusive. To be honest, I haven't really seen this that much anymore. I feel like it's being a little bit more phased out in design. However, I think it is something that's more common in the hospitality industry. So if you decide that you do want to have this, go ahead and make it an optional field. Use your best judgment. Really think about it. Is this field really necessary for your users, your customers, whoever it may be? Allow a type-in option, and then lastly, allow future editing, right? Gender is something that changes. Gender identity changes all the time for some people, so it's important to go ahead and allow that change for them as well. So with pronouns, if your users are going to be interacting with a third person, super important to use pronouns, to ask for them. On the left side, we have a form asking for pronouns with different checkboxes, right? Different pronouns. Super great because it allows for custom pronouns at the bottom there. It's a type-in option. And also allows for multiple selection. On the right-hand side, we have a form. This was actually taken from LinkedIn. Again, it also allows for multiple selection through the custom option, right? It's a drop-down. You can select custom and then put whatever pronouns you may want to put in there. So in summary, gender diversity is something that is growing. It's not something that can really be ignored, right? Especially with the younger generation, it's becoming more and more important that we're seeing. So the first thing you should always consider, should you actually ask for gender, right? Weigh the pros and cons and the associated risks with asking. If you want to do so, make sure you're intentional about it, right? Be transparent. Make sure that it's meaningful and that you're getting meaningful data from this. Sex versus gender. If there's anything you take away from this talk, it's that sex and gender are not the same thing. So they're not interchangeable. Asking for sex is always a heavy impact for many users. It can be very discomforting, right? So make sure that you're using empathetic language when you do so. Last main point, what to ask. Type in custom, multiple checkbox options are always the best. Never use male or female for gender again. Avoid prefixes or just make them optional or type in. And then lastly, ask pronouns for third-person interactions. And if there's any questions, and if anyone's brave enough to ask for those, please do so now. Yes?
So one thing that I was thinking of is how it seems like oftentimes we're like fighting when these questions come up against like what is like expected or standard. Do you have any suggestions as to like how to argue against that? Like you've given some great examples with people wanting to use this for marketing or advertising.
Right.
There are risks that you mentioned, but anything else?
Yeah. So I would say especially when it comes to marketing, that is a huge thing to consider. As I said before, a lot about marketing really is data analysis, right? So when it comes to like a type-in option, which definitely is the more inclusive option and more preferable, it could definitely skew your results, right, for your data, what you need for marketing. So again, it's something that you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons with. Is it the most inclusive? Maybe not, right? But I guess what you can do in that sense is probably just include some more options, right? Instead of just woman, man, maybe include transgender woman, transgender man. Maybe at least give some more options, right? Instead of having like the binary option. But really when it comes to like the standard, I think we're working towards a more inclusive standard. We're seeing like in LinkedIn, for example, right? We're seeing that custom option now. So it is something that is actively being worked towards, but we are not there yet, for sure. Yes. Or, sorry, whoever first.
It's just me not knowing as much about how you guys represent like the radio level. Okay, so if you type something in there, does it become dynamic throughout the app?
So it really depends on how it's designed and how that data is used, right? I wouldn't say it's not up to the developer. It's more up to design, I guess it might be. But yeah, so basically when you enter in that data, right, it goes to the back end, and then developers decide what they want to do with that data, right? So there are certain apps that are designed to where, let's say think of them like if-else statements, right? If the user enters in women, then show women profile, right? If user enters in man, give them a male profile, right? It's things like that. It's based off of conditional statements is the best way that I can put it. So really, the point that I was making is to not rely on it. Do not use that information do not use it to work your way into the logic of it, right? Because some people, they may be, male, may have to answer male sex, right? But they're women, right? Me, right? If I have to enter in female sex, which I have to do that, right? And I end up getting a profile that it's a female avatar, and there's a huge block letters. It's like female, and I'm like, okay, cool, whatever you say, So yeah, things like that, really something important to think about. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One's related, one's sort of. So you mentioned earlier about an option that was something along the lines of assigned at birth. One of the things I'm seeing, particularly in the medical area, is the option of born male, born female. What is your take on that? I don't know if those are interchangeable, but I could see language like maybe saying assigned at birth for somebody that's not maybe older, not too young.
Yeah.
Understand?
You're calling me out. No, no, totally get it.
This is also UX, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. That is a really great point. And what I will say with that is, what it comes down to is understanding your users, I think the best, right? Because you're right. There are certain terms we use now that are going to become outdated in the future. And sometimes it happens so fast we don't even realize. Like, I've never even heard of that. I don't know. I didn't know that. But yeah, that's something that maybe you're more aware of, right? So again, what it really comes down to is understanding your users, the type of language that they really identify with. And if they feel that, assigned female at birth or, whatever like that is just not something that they are aligned with, then I would recommend aligning your language and options with your users. Is really the most important thing to do.
And my second question is kind of related to what you were just explaining. And you mentioned earlier the example of like the dating app, right? So you're seeing within that context now, asking questions about sexual orientation, right? And you could see a list of 200 or more options, right? So like, this could be very problematic for a UX practitioner, right? And just like you said, language changes, more options happen. You might not have an option there that might offend someone, so I don't know, what would you suggest in that case?
Ask me all the hard questions. No, in that case, I mean, if we're being realistic, I don't think it's possible to appease everybody on the planet, and that really, I mean, that's very true for lots of things that don't even involve gender. So, again, yeah, I mean, I haven't really used dating apps in a long time, so I don't know about all those options or how they really use that data, but I think it's also something where you kind of have to accept that maybe, yeah, it might offend somebody, but I think what it comes down to is you need to do your best to really understand your users. It's very similar to, really understanding what they want to see, what's going to make them comfortable. And I think it would be a great idea to have, have options for feedback in like apps, things like that. So if your users do feel particularly strong about some sort of language, they have the opportunity to share that with you, right? And then you can decide to do what you want with that data. You want to take action on it, or you feel like maybe it's not the right time or the right way to do so. That's the best that I can speak to on that.
It wasn't a gotcha question or anything.
No,
I think you had a perfectly good example for UX in there where you actually have an input field where you can actually ask and get that data.
Right, exactly. And again, that's something that type in option, super great. But also at the same time, something to consider if you are using that data, for whatever you're using it for. Yeah. Yes.
Mine's more of a comment, less of a question. I wanted to say, I think I'm going to take away from your talk and I really appreciate it, is the framing of how to do this versus why to do it. And what I mean by that is asking the question, why do we need this? There's a lot of government forms I work on. They've made that switch, I noticed on the older forms where it said sex and now it's gender, and they're like, oh great, problem solved. And you just made that very clear, like, not problem solved. And really the question should have been when they did that is, do we need this? And I can think of examples of forms people fill out for relatives who are like deceased, and like how much more identification do you need other than a birth date, a name, a social security number, and maybe that relative is, you know, transgender, and they don't know what that person applied for at the end. So why ask a triggering question? So I'm going to take away from this now asking for why, not how to do this. So I appreciate your sharing.
Yes.
That's great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. Yes. Please go ahead.
Adding on to that, what's kind of, if, for example, you don't really need to ask about gender, in your opinion, as designer or whatever, what do you tell your students? So what's kind of your go-to? What do you say to them?
Well, the role that I'm in currently, I don't have that power or influence. Well, yeah, maybe, right? But yeah, I mean, I would say, because I am very vocal, like at work, I'm very vocal about my, opinions and my values and what I really believe in, right? So I've always found that, especially if you work somewhere where they are very inclusive and they have a great culture of, wanting their employees to share their ideas and their thoughts, I have always just felt that it's been great to do so in the most genuine and authentic way that I do, right? A lot of that is based off of just how I feel about it, and I think that that's something that's very important to do, when it comes to speaking on things like this and really like influencing other people. It's not about, it's not so much about like processes and standards, and it's really about how you feel and how you want your users to really feel. I think that's super important.
A lot of times, like with marketing demographic information, I don't see, from a UX perspective, I don't see it as relevant at all. Motivations or behavior.
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
like,
I totally get that.
Just very, it doesn't matter if that's not why they're coming to your app.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
Absolutely.
think one of the issues right now is the whole data is the new oil problem. So let's collect as many data points as we can get, because we may need to use them in the future, or they may provide some insights we never even thought of, right? So a lot of times it's like, let's throw everything out there and see what we can do.
Right. And I do feel like that's something that's probably going to be shifting to, as we're seeing, like I said, gender diversity, especially in the younger generation, is becoming very, it's growing much more and more. And that's something that is probably going to have to be, it's something that's going to have to be addressed for sure. Oh, absolutely. Real quick, he had a question first.
Do you or anyone else here have examples of how to push for progressive change from like areas of the product that are not like gender affirming or gender sensitive? I have forms probably in my product that are asking for sex data or gender data that really don't need it.
Right.
I can go in and like open push that code, but I'm probably going to piss someone off. And they're like, that's their problem.
Right.
It doesn't really need it.
Yeah. No, that's definitely. I mean, I've never really been in that position, so I feel like I can't really speak to that. But if it were me, I would go to my direct manager and just try to have that conversation with them and be like, hey, kind of give out some, like I said, it's important too. You can provide some statistics, kind of show them like what direction that we are heading in, right, in terms of the industry, and to explain how it's good for business. Really, if that's the bottom line, if that's what they're focused on, it is very good for business to be inclusive.
Or liability.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Four questions done.
Exactly. Well, I have a draft. Just have someone look it over.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Have you ever, along with gender, at San Diego State, we're starting to see instances where given name versus preferred name is also becoming an issue?
Yes.
Are you seeing instances like that, or is there like a movement to change like given versus preferred?
Yes. So.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I will. I'm like, so Stacey asked, the term specifically preferred, right? Asking for a preferred name or preferred pronouns. And I will say I'm strongly against that word, right? Because what that insinuates to people is that they have an option to use a different name or to use different pronouns, right? And it's not. It's really not an option. It's these are my pronouns, this is my name, right? Call me that, please call me by this. So preferred, I hate seeing it. And I know most people that relate with me do. I would definitely recommend leaving that out.
And mine was more less of a question, more of a comment on the great dialogue that we're having. It's like, one, I think we can all probably make our own names presentation and use that as a reason why that this is important and we're trying to make some change. But also on that, maybe you think about the topic of the data as like the new oil is a way to kind of maybe approach that is like, it's only good if the data, right? If we're limiting the options to two and the world has changed, then if you're only asking for two options, that data is not good anyway, right? So it kind of becomes a data quality.
Absolutely. Any more questions? All right. Oh, I forgot there's a clicker. I was like, so I want to say thank you, everybody, for your time and attention tonight. I would love to connect with any and all of you. You can find me at linkedin.com/in/Nathan Lucian Ortiz. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
All right, awesome talk so far. Next up, we have Casey Markowski, who has 10 years of professional experience in the blindness field. She has held advisory positions on various boards, including the Accessibility Advisory Board appointed by Mayor Todd Gloria. Casey is passionate about innovation and accessibility and works as a consultant to help organizations and teams create more opportunities and break down barriers for people with disabilities. Casey's talk is how adults learn to use assistive technology, navigating disability, and a new skill set. Take it away, Kate.
And I just brought this up. I just want to show you where the camera is, and then I'll cut over to you.
It's a great angle.
So we have a limited budget here. Okay?
Hi, everybody. I'm what I have learned these last couple months. I'm a SME. How many SMEs in here? Oh, okay. Lovely crowd. So, I am a subject matter expert. I have my PhD in working with people with disabilities, specifically in curriculum and instruction and special education. So I do a lot of consulting and a lot of work all across all disabilities, all fields. So when I was asked to present, I've never been to this group before. Anybody else's first night? Okay, yay! Okay, yay! You guys can support me because none of you know anybody else here. So this is a very tech crowd. I am so not tech. I have paper. So I have to call on my husband to do anything on my laptop. So I am so not tech, which may be great for you guys. So what I'm going to talk today about this specific area that I find is a area that's often overlooked, and it's adults who are learning how to use assistive technology. So when we're looking at like something like a website, I train people how to use assistive technology to access a website, to access services. Especially during the pandemic, it was a lot of fun trying to figure out how to do all these different things, like teaching people with vision impairments how to use Zoom. So when everything shut down. So we found this really unique population of adults who were dealing with navigating a new disability and also having to learn a new skill set, which is assistive technology tools. So why adults? So this is primarily, I assume, your target audience, because I don't know if many of you have children or if you're doing children apps. Mostly you guys have adults coming to your websites or services, whatever you're using. So if you are trying to target the adult population, and it's not uncommon that someone develops some type of disability. It could be something from starting to lose your vision. It could be neuropathy in your fingertips. Like, we all got something in this room. And so we're kind of excluding a whole population when we don't make it more accessible to somebody who is aging, as well as things aren't going right and obviously are coming up with either a disability or something's going on, and they may need support or assistance. And kids, they freaking learn everything in 5 minutes. Like, if you haven't been around kids, you give them an iPad, they can jailbreak it in 5 minutes. So this topic's more on adults. Okay, so what's assistive technology? So what I'm going to be when I'm referring to assistive technology, I refer to devices, equipment, services, or software. So I figure most of you are in software, but that's typically what we refer to as assistive technology. This could be something very simple, like glasses, count as assistive technology. It's something that helps a person live independently, depending on how bad your vision is. It can be a magnifying glass as assistive technology. It could be bump dots on a microwave for someone with a vision impairment to be able to press start or cancel. That's assistive technology. To something very complex like screen readers, which I'm sure all of you in the room are familiar with screen readers. All right, so we're going to look at how adults learn. I promise it won't be super boring. I know PhD kind of gives people that, like, it's going to go on forever, but I'll try not to be like, so I'll make it fun. Try to make it fun. So the first thing we look at are, what are their goals and needs? Why do they need this assistive technology? What are they going to use it for? So it's not uncommon for me to be working with somebody who's in their 80s or 90s who's losing their vision, and they show up with a brand new iPad and go, my grandson or my son got this for me. What do I do with it? Can I turn it on? And I'm like, God, okay, we got a lot to do. Get on an iPad, we can't even turn it on, can't even click the home button. It's just, they're not understanding it. So we gotta look at what's the goal. So if I had asked that person, what's going on? Like, what is your goal with this iPad? What did you tell them? How did this conversation go? And it's usually they want to talk to family more, something like that, or they want to connect with a grandchild overseas or something. So then it's like, okay, let's take a step back. We could probably do something else. So first looking at what's the goal, why do they need it? The next one is training and support. So in order to learn or use an assistive technology device, we have to learn how to use it. So that could be through, they need one-on-one training, like we forget this stuff, we were in school. They may need one-on-one support. They may be able to attend a group class, maybe not, but a lot of programs do group classes to be able to teach as many people as possible. They may benefit from online classes or resources. Those are kind of now becoming more common. Or peer-to-peer support. So finding someone else who has a similar disability or is going through the same thing or went through the same thing, and can they learn from them? The next one is practice and feedback. We all need that. When we're trying something, we try it, we get feedback from somebody. So we all kind of need that interaction with somebody who understands assistive technology. And then the final one is integration. So again, back to the iPad, like, why do they need it? Same thing with what we're learning. How are we going to integrate it? Are they going to be texting? Are they going to be using it daily? Is it just something really cool and fancy? It needs to be able to be integrated into their life so they're actually using it. All right, so challenges of learning. So not everyone can learn very easily. As we age, we tend to get more fixed in our ways. So it's hard. So the first area that's a big challenge is frustration. They're dealing with a new disability that they're having to navigate, and now they have to learn this equipment to be independent. So for example, if you had a medication. You're able to go to your doctors or go to your pharmacy, get your medication, manage your own prescription on your own. Nobody knew what you were on. You had that independence. You had that autonomy. And let's say it could be something simple as arthritis. It could be something like you're losing your vision. You can't read the bottle anymore. Well, now you have to be able to use assistive technology to manage your health. But in order to do that, now somebody has to help you, and now you're giving away some of your privacy in order to get that assistance. So there's a lot of frustration in having to learn as an adult. We're all adults in here. It's frustrating to learn, especially me in technology. All right, overwhelmed. So when I look at assistive technology, it's all like a Swiss Army knife now. Back in the day when we all had Swiss Army knives. So they do a ton. Your iPad can do everything now that a computer used to. And anybody in here know Palm Pilots? Oh, my crowd. Okay. So it used to do one thing. It was so easy. You can write, you even had your own language on it. It just did, you wrote the words and it took your notes. Now these phones and technology do everything. So it's very overwhelming. Especially if you were to get some of these newer assistive technology devices, just handed to you, the buttons, the colors, it's very overwhelming. And shame. So that's another area we see is shame. And it's looking at, they're dealing with a disability, whatever's going on, and then now they have to need help with this device, and it's not helping. It's making them feel worse sometimes. Sometimes it makes them feel better, but in the process of learning that is a big challenge. All right, and these are skills we are not born with. I think you guys all know a lot of the stuff we do on top of glass on our screens. It's just not something we're born with. So it's not uncommon to get somebody who has never even had an iPhone, let alone a flip phone, and trying to show them some of these devices. They just don't understand how swiping moves the screen, or like double clicking on the home button does things. Things like double tap, triple tap, the word swipe. I actually have to teach clients what the word swipe means versus tap versus touch. Just those three words I have to start with, because if I were to, user experience, we're talking about if you ask the client, okay, tap, touch, and you see what they do on the table. It's very interesting. So I have to use like little rhymes to get them to understand touch. You push your finger and don't move, whereas tap is you touch and release. Gotta make sure you're not mixing up the words. Okay, so strategies. So start simple. So usually start something super simple like texting. It's usually easy. We're able to get it on the phone, text, and put in words and close it. So we start very simple. Common language, we heard about that earlier, using very common user experience language so that they're able to understand it. Connect with existing behaviors. So for example, swiping on a screen, you should see what they try to do when we say swipe on a screen. If you've ever helped somebody who's older try to learn how to use an iPhone, it's very interesting when you say the word swipe and see what they do. So I have to use the word wiping dust off. So if you're wiping dust off the table with your finger, and they seem to understand that. So I try to use existing behaviors. Start with one device at a time. It's very easy for these people to, whether they're at the VA hospital, they get a bunch of tech all at once, or if they're a client of Department of Rehabilitation, they get a bunch of technology all at once. So taking the time to go through one at a time. And using applied learning, so connecting what they are learning to the real world. So iPhones, I teach voiceover on an iPhone. If you guys are familiar with it, it reads everything on your screen. So it's really fun to show them what it does, but actually taking that and having them make notes, make phone calls with it to help them understand the real world connection. And take your time. Technology is ever changing, so learn as you go. All right, common barriers that we find with our clients is lack of awareness of what's out there and what it does and what's best for them. Accessing training and support. If you can imagine, like in big cities like this in San Diego, we're all here. Like you can find classes and all sorts of support. But I actually worked out in the middle of Mississippi for 3 years. It was like no one. So if you were to lose your vision there and needed any kind of AT training, like good luck. So being able to have access to training and support costs, it's expensive. I swear, if it has to do with disabilities, they just mark it up times 10. Like, it's crazy how expensive just to have access to the same things typical people do. It's just disgustingly marked up so high. So, and I'll be on mic for that. So it is, it's so expensive. Compatibility. So you guys are familiar with this, Androids, iPhones, being able to use the same software or the same product on an Android doesn't work with an iPhone, or it may work with a computer, doesn't work with an iPad. And then the stigma associated with using an assistive device. So when you think of visually impaired, you think of the long cane. Wheelchair users, there are stigmas associated to those. Role of inclusive design. So that's you guys. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, but one size doesn't fit all. Same thing with assistive technology. Not every screen reader is the same. Not every visually impaired user is going to be the same. Not everybody with assistive device is going to be the same. And I find it all the time when I go and consult, or I'm working in like my boards with the government, like what works for one group pisses off another. And so the bump tiles are great for my people with vision impairments so they don't go on the street, but anyone with a walker and a wheelchair hates me. So it's like I don't win, but I try to do my best for what's the safest and what works for everybody. So it's just you're not going to make them all happy. The focus should be on how they will use it in their daily life and not so much focused on how the user is using the technology or the website. So making it actual functional to what their needs are. And giving feedback, or getting feedback. So it's often really funny that we hear a lot about people saying, oh, we reached out to the community and got feedback. And then we find out, did you actually talk to people with assistive technology to get on your thing? Like, anybody use a screen reader? Did anybody actually use magnification? Did you actually talk to somebody with a disability? And we find that there's a big disconnect between people like taking your word from me as a consultant versus going straight to that population. Did you reach out to a nonprofit of the deaf and hard of hearing and ask them to try it? I highly recommend. They love it. You guys, we get people all the time, especially from SDSU, coming to one of the centers I was at, come and try out your technology and actually hear what they say. And you'll hear stuff I don't even think about. Because yes, I'm a subject matter expert, but they're actually using it. So actually go to the people who are using assistive technology. All right, kept it short. Any questions? Yes.
What are your thoughts on like the Be My Eyes app? Like how have you heard of that?
That's been around for a while.
Yeah, like you use that app and you can learn how to use like an iPad or an iPhone before they can use that.
You have to use it before you can use Be My Eyes. Yeah.
What is your experience been with that? How to use that device?
I teach it. I actually teach it. That's one of the apps I teach.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
It's been a challenge. Like it's been a challenge to have someone like move on to get that new device and then move on to Be My Eyes, or Be My Eyes made it very easy.
Oh, no, you have to be able to use, if you are using Be My Eyes, you typically are using VoiceOver, so you have to be able to use VoiceOver in order to get into Be My Eyes. One way I found around it is with Siri, being able to prompt her to open it. But even to get into your phone past the lock screen, you have to be able to understand VoiceOver. If you have no sight, you can't even put in your lock screen.
You can't make a shortcut or anything.
The only shortcut I just found out recently, I'm pretty excited about. I saw it on Instagram, not gonna lie. That's pretty much, we all go on TikTok and stuff to find our tips. There is a shortcut I found out in a feature where you can prompt a gesture on your iPhone using a verbal prompt. And I forget what it's called, I have it on my phone. But you tell, like I told it open sesame, and I trained it to do my code. So I was showing it for an exercise that open sesame, and it went boop, 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 and typed in my thing. So I was able to get into it. The only problem with it doesn't like VoiceOver. They kind of over, yeah, they have issues with each other. So I was like, man, I found one thing, so I have to get in, turn it off, turn on voiceover. So it's like with assistive technology, it's kind of, they get mad at each other. So I did find a shortcut, but it doesn't work with voiceover.
What does Be My Eyes do?
So Be My Eyes is a app that you can use for, basically it has different functions on it. Like, let me make sure I have the right app. It's the one that you can put people, money, right? Or is it the one that you can, okay.
I've just been on the receiving end. It's somebody's like cat needs to see something.
Okay,
So they get a
it's the
call.
crowdsourcing one. Okay, so this one, you can go on to it. Back in the day when it started, it was really cool. You could sign up as a visually impaired person or a sighted person. And what you would do as a visually impaired person, you can, there's a lot of TikToks about this one, if you ever want to go find it, but you can post up your phone and say, it would call, and it would crowdsource to see, so if I was on the vision end, I would get a thing that said, oh, this call is coming in, and I could answer it and tell them what I was seeing. So like if I was in the grocery store, I could do it and then be able to see it. Like if I was picking out like cereal or something, it would send it what it was.
So it's like a crowdsourced,
Yeah.
real-time audio description.
Yeah, and I don't know if they charge now or not. It used to be free back in the day. I'm sure it's still free. I haven't worked on that one in a couple years. But yeah, that's one of the apps I work with. Yes.
How do you deal with like adult ADHD or like extreme lack of focus when you're
That's me. So with people who are struggling with any, and it's not just ADHD. Repeat the question. How do I work with people who have attention deficit problems in teaching, right? So, and it's not always people with attention deficit disorders. It's also people with stroke. Oh, I'm done too. So it's also people with strokes, memory loss. That is something that it's one of the things we learn about, scaffolding, break it down, make it, depending on what they're learning and what they're able to learn. I do multiple methods. We don't just sit there and do lecturing and talking like I'm doing now. I try to incorporate, if I'm able to, actually physically getting up, trying something. But there's many disabilities that include the inability to pay attention. So we always say, try to use your other senses, physically get involved, visually, auditorily get involved, so it's not boring and they're able to keep up with it. Also breaking it down super small, kind of working with one little bit at a time. But I feel like that's not uncommon, especially when it's somebody new to technology, like an iPad. It's very hard to stay interested in it when you're just getting on. So the main thing is making it functional. What are we doing? And putting a goal behind it. Okay, let's text somebody, and they love that. It helps them stay focused. Yes?
Are you using any voice recognition technology with your clients? Like text-to-speech insurance like that?
So those are two different, so using voice recognition or using text-to-speech?
Well, it's just another.
Oh, so iPhone, Android, like we use TalkBack for Android, we use VoiceOver for iPhone, different programs on computers, kind of whatever fits their budget.
I mean more
is
like
able to.
Siri or Alexa.
So Siri and Alexa, I call it virtual assistants. It helps my clients understand the difference between the two. Siri is something that's like your assistant. Hey Siri, open this app. Versus VoiceOver reads everything on the screen and doesn't stop. So, and then there's some other ones that they have in there that are like an accessibility option where it just reads a little bit of text, kind of like I can tell it what to read. I forgot what your question was. Do I use
voice
it?
Control? Voice control or
Okay,
Dragon?
voice control is what did the code. I was like, I knew it was called something. So Dragon is being able to, that is, to put it in my brain, it's where you talk and then it puts it in the computer. But we have lots of other ones like that.
Well, with both voice control, so voice control on Mac and Dragon naturally speaking allows somebody that can't physically interact can do voice control. So it's Siri and they won't do everything as far as if you're looking at the screen saying, click the register now button, scroll down, open this. And so there are tools that are different than the virtual assistants that are more about driving without using your hands. Is that what you're getting at?
Just any app or any function you can use or activate with voice.
That would be voice control does that. So when I have voice control on, it not only I'm able to say, enter in the search field, and it will prompt the search field. I can visually see if it's working, and then I could actually say words and it'll dictate automatically without me hitting any buttons. And then you can say enter or select. It does actually let me do a little bit of voice control. It's not super, it's actually getting better. But that one's that's the one you're talking about too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're able to do it without touching your screen. But you got to be able to turn it on and off though, because it'll just automatically start texting people in your pocket. It totally does, and I was like, oh, I gotta turn this off. So having shortcuts turned on is fun. I like my husband. He does a lot. If he's watching, hi. So he builds websites and stuff. So I love showing him voiceover and stuff. So if you guys are interested in me showing you guys voiceover, talkback, whatever you have, voice control, so you guys can test it out. It's a lot of fun. I love it. So, any other questions? Yes.
Do you want to take the functional aspects of the iPad, for example, or do you also teach you're on the internet and the pop-up scripts, don't touch that. Things that'll be
So what I teach is how to use the iPad, how it's supposed to be used. Because I tell them, I can't teach you every app, unfortunately. So I have a systematic pattern for teaching them how to download an app, how to open an app, how to explore the app, how to try to close the best they can, looking for close or an X, and so basically how to search. But I don't teach every website or every instance because I can't, things change all the time. But everything has a similar, hearing the word menu or hearing the word close, they notice double tap to close. So I teach not so much functional, I teach the foundational skills, and then they're all over online asking each other questions about specific apps and stuff. But most follow that same pattern, so I don't have to individualize it. Yes?
Have you had to do any of this remotely? You said you were doing some of this over COVID, over Zoom. Have you found ways that doing that is tactics or strategies that are more successful? Again, I work as a teacher. I'm teaching software engineering, but people who don't have software engineering experience, some of them are very new to computers. So I'm like, how do I get, again, talking about 3 steps beyond this tool that I want them to practice in depth when they are struggling to get this out. But what works, or is there things that work for you?
So with
Buddy hop people?
with COVID, one of the ways we prevented from shutting down was to be able to continue courses online. And the only method we can do that with at that time was through Zoom. And our biggest problem was either dialing in a lot of numbers to get on Zoom, which a lot of people couldn't do. They were getting bussed into our center and bussed home, so they couldn't even dial on their phone. So a lot of the things I was having, it was per person. But I just got really good at, I'd say, okay, get somebody else on the phone if possible and turn your phone on loud. And a lot of us were able to listen to the phone to know what was going on. But mostly they needed a support person at home because that's just the nature of what we were doing. We were able to have somebody be the eyes and ears or, whatever they needed at home. But as far as any tricks and stuff, I think most of us were Googling it. I'm not gonna lie, we all do that. But not really anything other than just like we always do, be creative, problem solve, and Google. God bless Google.
Thank you.
All right.
Give it up for all of our speakers.
Yeah.
Michelle, Nathan,
Yeah,
and Casey.
thanks everybody.
Really awesome content tonight, genuinely. So we have a website, a11ySD. I'll try to post the slides. I try to do that promptly, but give me a couple weeks maybe. And we'll have that up there. Slides from last meetup are already up there, and demo sites. So definitely check that out. And
We have a shameless free book giveaway for anybody interested in speaking at our next meeting. It'll probably be June or July or so. Come talk to us after we get done here.
It's written by my boss. He knows his stuff.
No,
he's
it's
watching.
good. I've read it.
Give me that raise.
What else? Hang out, have another drink, hang out, talk to people, meet people. No rush to get out of here. And I think that's about it. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you, everybody.